God bless everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to share the word today. It's always such a privilege and I don't take it lightly. So I'm sure excited about get into the word with you. I'd like everyone to turn to Acts, please, the book of Acts, Acts chapter 2. Well, before we begin, I just want to share a little bit. I was born and raised here in Rockford, Illinois. In fact, I grew up just 5 minutes from here. So I used to walk through this neighborhood and believe God and dream about it, that someday I would love to live in this Shaw Woods neighborhood. So when we got our house, it was really, really cool. I went to the high school right across the street called Guilford High School. And growing up, I searched the churches. I was looking for God. I searched the churches all around. But my favorite one was the one right across the street on the corner called City First. Back then, it was called Assembly of God. And it was my favorite one because I loved the pastor there. Every Sunday, back then, they did an altar call. So every Sunday, I would be at the top of the stairs and I would run all the way down the stairs and go to the altar to get saved. So after about 4 times, the guy, he looks at me, he sees me running down the stairs again, and he looks and he says, "Honey, you got it." And I said, "Are you sure?" I mean, I just wanted to know that I was saved and going to heaven. And he said yes. So as I'm going back up the stairs, I'm like, how does he know? How come you think I would have known that? But he said I was. So I took his word. I still had a little doubt in my back of my mind, Anyway, so you can imagine the first time I finally spoke in tongues, where someone took me to Romans, taught me what it meant to get born again, and that I could speak in tongues, and they showed me how to do it. Then I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was born again, going to heaven, and all hell couldn't stop me. And it was a great relief. I just cried. I mean, it sounded really funny at first and kind of weird, but I knew it was different. And I knew it wasn't just me doing it. I knew it was God. And I knew the Spirit of God was in me. It was a great feeling. And it was a settling feeling and a restful feeling. It's just awesome. So started thinking about that church, and I went to it the other day to deliver flowers. And I walked in, and of course it is all redone and so much bigger. It holds thousands now. It used to hold about 800. And they've just doubled in size. And I remember going to churches where I would slide in, hear the service, and slide out. You can come late. You can come late and leave early if you want. You don't have to talk to anybody. You get to hear the service. Or you can stay and try to say hello to somebody and try to start up a conversation, maybe smile, have a little cup of coffee, that terrible stale coffee. I remember. I know. And the donuts that were just, but anyway, but I still, you don't want to knock it. I love it. And you can make it. It's all what you make it, right? Wherever you are. But I started thinking about, why do we do house to house? So in Acts chapter 2 is where I'd like to begin. And how it all started in the first century church. In Acts 2, we saw after they got born again, we're going to start in verse 41. In Acts 2:41, then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls. I mean, that's a lot. And that was a miracle. And they received his word with gladness. They gladly received his word. That's such an important word. That word gladly is like thankful. They were thankful. I was so thankful. I finally knew that I knew I was born again. It's that, like, when you're ready, when you gladly received the word, it was awesome. And 3,000 souls is a lot of people. How many? I mean, in this room we have 3, 6, 9, 10, 14 of us, something like that. I mean, 3,000. That's a lot of people. In verse 42, and they continued, these people, they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and in fellowship and in breaking of bread and in prayers. There were four things, the four foundational principles that they did together. And continuing steadfastly. We'll go into these words. Let's continue. 43. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. 44. And all that believed were together and had all things common. Verse 45. And they sold their possessions and goods and parted them to all men as every man had need. And in 46. And they continued daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house. They did eat their meat with gladness. There's that word again, gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all people. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. So I would love to concentrate on this verse 46. I wanted to read the whole thing. Robert, could you help me? We're going to pass these out, you guys. So we're going to work on these two. What I've done for you guys in the video, it's 46 and 47 in your Bibles. So we're going to pass these out. We're going to kind of work through these verses, okay? If you would pass these out with some pens, okay?
Okay.
Thanks for your help, Robert. Everybody gets one, okay? So we begin in verse 46. And they continuing. So we're going to see what we're to do, what God does, and then what happens when we do our part. God does his part. We'll see what happens after. Verse 46. And they continuing daily. Continuing daily. They persisted. It's daily pursuits. They were consistent.
Did you get one, Joan?
I was looking up these words just to kind of give a deeper meaning on what we are to do. What is our part? They were persistent. They were consistent, and they did it daily, very often. Okay. And in number 2 is with one accord. One accord was in the manifestations today. That was so cool. One accord is with one mind. It's one passion. Isn't that a great word to use? One passion. It also means to rush along in unison. I thought that was so cool. One accord. Thanks, Robert. To rush along in unison. One accord also, I heard Juan would say this a lot, unity of purpose. And I've heard Lalian say that a lot, unity of purpose, one accord. And then in the temple and breaking bread. Well, in the temple was like a sacred place. It's like a holy place. So, and we know now that God lives in us. And wherever we are could be a holy place when we're walking with God and in fellowship. It's pretty cool. And breaking bread. Breaking bread. Now, bread, I looked up that word bread because I thought, does it really mean bread or does it mean food of any kind? And it was both. You have to look up these words because, you know, the different translations out there, there's so many of them, and you go back to the Greek and the Aramaic and you do the best you know how. But I really was delighted when I found out that it was also food of any kind. And today after fellowship, we're going to break bread together and have a picnic. And I think that's really wonderful. And we do that every week. And sometimes we get to do it daily with each other. And then when it says from house to house, 3, so like a place where one fixed his residence, one's abode, you know, it's very personal, a home is. And you invite people, it says from house to house they went. Now, this is the first century church. I'm just thinking, it's about time to get back to this. These pillars that we see here, and these four very important things in this word. It's a household. It's a abode, they called it. It's a place where one fixed his residence. It's where one settled in. Marty's moving to Rockford. She's getting settled into her house. So maybe sometime we'll get to go to her house, and we'll get to go house to house. And in a few weeks, we get to go to the Tiedemann's house. So it's pretty exciting. So that's why we're doing what we do. God will do what he does. And then we're going to see what happens pretty soon here. The next thing, did eat. Now this would be like partake of, to be made a partner, it even said. I thought that was eat. That was really cool. Did eat, to be make a partner of. When you're eating with someone, they're kind of like your buddy, your partner. I mean, you're eating together. They used to say your words are salted when they would salt the food and eat together. I thought that was really neat. So this is what we're to do. And then that word meat. So did eat their meat. Okay, meat. I looked up that. And that was another word for food, nourishment, and it also meant meat. So meat, some nourishment, and food. And that word with, the next word with is among, like with or among gladness. That would be with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was among the eating of the food, with gladness and singleness of heart. Very direct. Okay. Gladness also could be like exaltation, extreme joy, exceeding joy. I thought that was great. Gladness, thankfulness. And then the next word and could be indeed. It's very emphatic, that word and in that verse. And of course, singleness would be simplicity. Simplicity. It's also translated smoothness. I thought that was really cool. Singleness, smoothness, no rockiness, no bumpiness. It was just very smooth and simple of heart. Heart. This word, it says, this is where it denotes the center, the seat of all personal and your spiritual life. Your physical life and your spiritual life. It's the seat, the center where you sit. It's the middle. It's the innermost part of your being. It's where the soul and mind, it's kind of like a fountain where everything stems from it. It's the seat of your thoughts, the seed of your thoughts. It's where your passions and your desires and your appetites and your purposes come from. So if we read that whole verse again with a little bit more depth, we could just read it simple. Verse 46, and they continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart. It just adds a little bit more meaning, a little more depth to the word of God when you research it and you look at it like that. I just went to the interlinear and did some, thought about these words that are so important to us. So here's more stuff we're to do. Verse 47. Praising. Praising. A lot of times it uses to sing praises in honor to God. It also meant to promise or vow. Praising. To glorify. I love that. That really hits my heart, to glorify God. God was Theos there, of course, God Almighty, Spirit. That word and is indeed or also. So praising God and having, that word having is to hold fast, to keep, to own it. Joined by bonds like bonds of marriage, that word having, to have and to hold from this day forward. That's one of the words they use in the marriage vows, that word have. Praising God and having favor. Favor, a lot of times favor is used for the same word as grace. In this incident, it's used grace, joy, pleasure, delight, sweetness, grace of speech, goodwill, loving kindness. I saw a phrase once that said, grace kindles people to exercise the Christian character. I don't know. I love that grace kindles. Kindles our love, kindles our softness, tenderness. Great word. Praising God and having favor with all the people. So now now we get to see what God does. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. That word church, well, the word added, like is to join or to gather. The Lord joined and he gathered. And then to the church would be assembly of Christians gathered together for worship. So it could be ecclesia is the word. It's like an assembly of Christians gathered together for worship, wherever you are. And it says daily, such as should be saved. Well, such as should be saved. Of course, we know what the word daily means, as often as we can, daily. But keep safe is what should be, such as should be saved is the last phrase. Keep safe and sound, to rescue from danger or destruction, to make well, to heal, to restore to health, to make or be made whole, to be saved. So we see our part, we see what God does, and then we see what happens. And it's pretty exciting. I know that the more devoted we are, the more in love with God we are, the more the word moves. There's so many different levels of friendships. Just think of this room. I mean, I don't know without God if any of us would even be friends or know each other, but God has put us all together to enjoy each other's ministries and to learn from each other and to glean from each other. It's so exciting. It's exciting to go from our house to house and see our intimate abodes and to live there and to live life together. There's the kind of relationship where you could talk about the weather. That's the first, the one kind. The second kind could be like a friendship where you talk about your family life. And the third one, when the first century church said they devoted themselves to these four things, they devoted themselves to fellowship, to prayer, to the apostles' doctrine, to the teaching of the word. And there was one more, to the breaking of bread, food. But devoted is when you trust people. And trust is something that is usually earned, When you trust someone, you go to a deeper level. And that's when the devotion really hits in. And not only when you trust them, but you also share your inner worries, your desires, your dreams, your prayers, you lock hearts then. At that level, it also needs to be mutual. not just one-sided. And that's what that word devoted. It's pretty cool. They devoted themselves like that in fellowship on a deep level. And they saw signs, miracles, and wonders. They shared their possessions. They said, hey, what do you need? I got it. You need that? Here's what I need. What do you need? It was a mutual thing. It wasn't lopsided. This all takes time and trust, and you learn. You learn. The more you love God, the more you love the people, the more you want to do more for them. You want to open your door, and you want to have the sweetness of a home fellowship. Just never want to forget this first century stuff that we're learning from the original, how it started. I know the big rage is the big churches and the bagels and the coffee. Oh my God, I know, I love it. I've been there and I love it too. But later in the week, I missed the depth of the word. I missed my brother and sister calling me up and helping me stay on the word. And the reason it says daily, because daily the devil attacks you, and daily there's crap hitting you in the face. And I understand now why they say daily. The devil's never going to let up ever since Genesis. I think it's Genesis 3 is where, remember Adam and Eve, you know. But Adam, first thing, right after he took a bite of the apple, he went and hid himself. And God said, where are you, Adam? God knew exactly where Adam was. You can't hide from God, right, Robert? There's no hiding from God. God sees all. God is spirit. But God said, who told you you were naked? Adam said, I'm naked. And God said, who told you you were naked? Who told you you couldn't teach? Who told you you're too old? Who told you you're too young? Who's talking to you? That's why we need each other daily to help each other. If we're saying, man, I need some prayer. I need some help today. But we got each other to say, you can teach. To say, you are loved today. So thank God for all you guys. Thank you for opening your homes. Thanks for coming to our home. Our door's always open. We'll leave the light on. Sure love you. Thanks. God bless.